Hello, this is a Grotrian Steinweg 125 centimeters tall upright piano made in 1935, and it's come from mainland Europe to the UK, and the client would like us to assess it to see what sort of work might improve it. So looking at the casework first of all, that's obviously got the original black polish, and there is a little bit signs of wear here and there, so we could try and improve that. Obviously polish is going to find it really difficult to get it perfect, and some things like the top of the fall here, that's quite bad, so that's going to be difficult. We could obviously repolish the whole piano. Repolishing black French polish takes longer than repolishing wood French polish, just because it shows up so much, whereas wood can disguise the finish a bit more. And you can see there's a few, that's actually a twisted leg, so that needs tightening up a little bit. I don't know if that's a replacement because it's very, very loose. Could well be. So looking at the whole piano, and round the back I always like the back of the Grotrians. It's made with a kind of X shape. That was copied by Yamaha for a while, and then Yamaha stopped doing that. I like these handles on Grotrians too, nice and firm. Beautifully designed pianos. It's, as you've seen other videos about Grotrians, we've got plenty of them, and we just think they're one of the very best upright pianos ever made. And I'm sure if you're a piano technician, you'd like to confirm that. As a piano tuner, it's just delicious to tune, really. I was quite interested to see this rather small logo here. Normally I think it's about double the size of that. So I don't know whether they experimented with that or whether 1935 it was like that. I think we probably had 35, I don't know really. Anyway, that's not obviously that's important, just of interest. There's some chipped keys here. The ivories are they're good ivories, but there's some chips, and somebody's decided to stick the names on here. It's best to do those at the back if you're going to do them at all, then you won't get them dirty, but you can see they've rubbed off anyway, half of them. So, and there's some more chips here, so obviously you can take those off. Need to buff the keys, I think. There's a few loose ones like that one there, which is the cricket bat adjustment underneath, cricket bat shape adjustment. Another interesting thing about the keys is with some Grotrians of this age, they have a dip in the middle. I don't know if you can see it. I don't think you can very much on the video, but they actually concave in a bit here, which is quite nice to the feel. It's something that Grotrians did for a while. Not quite sure exactly which years they did. It's 85 keys, by the way, not 88, which is common on a lot of pianos of this age. The top lid is particularly scratched. Obviously that's going to be difficult without refinishing the whole of the top lid. And then where do you stop? You refinish the whole piano. It's very hard to match black because black varies quite surprisingly in different shades of black. So we're going to have to really think long and hard before we can give an idea of how much that would cost and whether we would prefer to redo the whole piano. Now as we look at the inside of the piano, you can see it's been restrung. There was a date on here which I wondered whether that was the date it was redone, and I think that's the last figure is a Continental 1, not a 7, because it would be more in keeping with the age I think this was done. So I'm just guessing that is August 2001, but I might be wrong. The string colour tends to suggest that. This gradually tarnishes with age. So new nickel-plated tuning pins here, perfectly very good job done. Very tight tuning pins, quite large on the tuning lever, so they're obviously oversized. They haven't replaced the rest plank, but that's fine. And the main thing I found, a lot of Grotrians, when they're restrung, the strings don't seem to sound as good as they did with the originals, but this is an exception. Let's listen to the tone round the breakpoint. And that's that nice sort of biting sound that Grotrians have. Well, it's so out of tune there, so the bass just sounds slightly different from the tenor area and well out of tune, but a very full and warm sound, so that's encouraging really. So strings are excellent, and whoever did that work has done it very, very well. And also they replaced the tapes here. They've done other work. There's a few things to do. There's a bit of slack in the keys. I've taken up, there's that C sharp there, and there's a bit of slack if you watch that. The bottom part's moving before the top part. And C, I've taken it up there. They don't have capstans, they have screws on the top there, which is not quite so easy to work on, but perfectly all right, and quite a lot of pianos have those. They've marked the hammers here, I presume, where they were slightly loose usually, but it seems to be marked in pencil, which is fine. Obviously mark it with chalk, you can get rid of the lines more easily. It's perhaps preferable to do that. The dampers are lifting off a bit haphazardly with if I push the pedal down, you can see that some of them lift off at different times. Bass ones tend to be lifting a bit earlier. They should be later, if anything. Should sort of peel from the treble down to the bass slightly earlier, possibly in the treble. So that needs adjusting to the pedal. The pedal's also not pulling them off far enough. If you look there, they should really clear the strings a bit more, I think. That's not too bad, but also to the keys, we'll see here, that's fine, about the keys coming about halfway, but in the bass here we've got some very early ones, so let's have a look. I found some early ones earlier on. Well, they're quite heavy springs here, so if they do tend to, if anything, need to be slightly past the halfway mark, so it's not too bad. This one there is a bit early really, and I would prefer that a bit later. There's two different there. That's an earlier one, that's a later one, so just trying to even those up and try and improve it as much as we possibly can. But the overall tone, and I'm encouraged by around this area, well, it sounds out of tune. That's very bright, but I think that's the hammer, and maybe a slight variation in the tone. The break point in the treble here, which often is not as good as it should be, particularly on some Bechsteins, for instance. Grotrians tend to be more reliable in that respect. And the good treble sound there too, so the strings are good. Just a quick look down the bottom and to appreciate the construction. This shape of soundboard is characteristic of Grotrians here, and beautiful. The bass sound, I think, is it's quite well offset if you look on the bridge here. If you touch the soundboard, so you get a nice rich sound. Let's hear the D down here. So that's on one of these bass strings, and very rich tone, spreading across the whole soundboard beautifully. I'm pleased to see it's been restrung with what we call English eyes. They don't hug the pin like German eyes do. I don't know if that's always the name in the trade. That's what we tend to call it. That may be a derogative of German eyes, because they hug the pins, but some English pianos have them too, but they hug the pins here, so it's hard to get them off and on, whereas if you need to here, that's easier to get them off and on. If you want to twist them, for instance, as bass strings sometimes need twisting to liven them up. I love Grotrian pedals. They're kind of like little feet, different characteristic Grotrian shape there, and sloping down, which we've said is useful because you don't wear the end of them out so much then. I've mentioned most of the things on this assessment sheet, but just a bit of recapping really. This is the age of the piano, and it's got chipped ivory, so that's something we can certainly more or less get rid of those chips. You can still just see them when they're done. Try and get the colour as well as we can. So restrung and reconditioned in mainland Europe. I forgot to say that the soundboard, I think, has been shimmed when it was restrung as well. So want to regulate it. I've set C. I didn't mention that we're doing the set off is also needing doing a let off. So that's something. 11mm key dip, 49 hammer blows, a bit high, but it seems to be functioning well with enough aftertouch. So we probably may not alter that. We'll have to think about that. 47 will be the normal hammer blow, and taking out slack on the keys. So general regulation, repairing the chip keys, and regulating. I noticed some cricket bats were also needing doing. Interesting to see the very small Grotrian logo, which is here. It doesn't look small there, does it? But it is smaller than the normal Grotrian logo, I think. If you're familiar with it, then you might like to comment. But we've done. We love this make of piano in this style, so it's something we've often managed to source and restore and sell. So I'm going to just play the piano. I'm not going to compare it with another piano at the moment. It's by the way, that's the key weighting. It's not terribly bad, and the centre there is a bit on the heavy side. Perhaps bring that down by 2 or 3 grams would be a good idea. Up in the treble, it's not too bad. Again, that should be perhaps 48 there, 50 here, and 52 is the normal. We can reweigh to a certain extent, so let us know what you'd like to do. I'm going to just play some of just get some idea of the resonance, because it's a beautifully resonant piano. Sorry about the tuning. It's A422.6, which is very flat, and I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't been tuned since it was restored, or hardly tuned since it was restored. You can see how flat the piano is here. I'm going to play A, and we'll look at what it registers as. So it wants to call itself G sharp 4. So if we play B flat, we'll see what that registers as. So it's nearer A440 than B flat. B flat is A sharp here, by the way. Tuning devices tend to call things sharp rather than flat. So very, very flat, and I think, as I say, it's not been tuned since it was restrung, or hardly been tuned since it was restrung. There's a beautiful resonance. And out of tune at the moment. Needs some voicing as well. But you can hear the richness of it. Tenor area is beautiful too. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much for listening.